Well, hello from the Estadio San Mamés in Bilbao, where Leinster are behind us preparing for tomorrow's Investec Champions Cup final against Bordeaux. And Cian, Tracey, it's hot. That's the main thing everyone's talking about here. I'm sweating after walking 5 minutes from the hotel. These players, they started their captain's run, and it's a fairly light one early because they wanted to get in ahead of the heat. It's going to be a factor in both finals this weekend, and it's kind of hard to convey how hot it is.
Yeah, what a stadium, by the way. We've been lucky enough to be in some very cool stadiums over the years, but this is right up there. It is spectacular, even where it's located outside, just kind of on the river. It's an amazing venue, and yeah, it'll be absolutely obviously hopping here tomorrow and tonight, obviously for the Challenge Cup final for Ulster as well. But the heat is going to be a massive factor. You would imagine, of course, it's going to play into Bordeaux's hands. They're obviously well used to the heat down in the south of France, and I don't know how much Leinster can actually prepare for what awaits tomorrow. It's a very early kick-off as well. We believe it's because the Cannes Film Festival, which is
closing ceremony, yeah.
Closing ceremony. So we had the Winter Olympics during the Six Nations with playing France on a Thursday night, and now the Champions Cup final is on early in the day, and that is not going to suit Leinster at all.
No, I guess that's the price you pay for free-to-air sport in France. Every home in France will be able to watch this game, whereas in Ireland that's unfortunately not the case. Both games are on Premier Sports. We have the Leinster team news. We're still awaiting the Bordeaux team news. Maybe you'll bring that to our viewers.
I suppose the big news is that Tadhg Furlong is on the bench. Huge call from Leo Cullen. Obviously he made his return from injury last week in the win over Ospreys and looked good. But Thomas Clarkson has had a brilliant season, and I think this is fully justified. Clarkson, like I said, has been exceptional. He's going to face a huge test at the scrum up against Jefferson Poirot, who is back from suspension, of course, because he missed a semi-final win over Bath due to suspension. So it's a big test, but I think it's one that's merited.
Yeah, well, he's had a great season, and what it also gives you is that you have Furlong's experience at the death, and Leinster have lost so many of these finals in that final quarter. So to bring him in, he was good off the bench against the Ospreys last weekend, so maybe that was a bit of a trial run when you were reading the tea leaves with Leo Cullen's selections. The other big news, Tommy O'Brien is fit to play. That's huge. They've gone with Rico Ioane. James Lowe is not out here. He seems to have travelled separately to the team, and he'll play no place for Sam Prendergast, as we expected. Kieran Frawley's number 22. It's Hugo Keenan. We may as well go through it. It's Hugo Keenan, Tommy O'Brien. The centres are Robbie Henshaw ahead of Jamie Osborne and Gary Ringrose. We've got Ioane on the left wing, Harry Byrne and Jemison Gibbs Park as expected, 9-10. Then you've got a front row of Porter, Cian and Thomas Clarkson, James Ryan, Joe McCarthy in second row, and then the back row we all expected, Jack Conan, Josh van der Fleer and Caelan Doris. And then on the bench, Paddy McCarthy's in, had not played since, December. He's in the number 17 shirt, having been re-registered this week in place of Alex Usanov. So Jerry Kermis is out. I think if he's right, that's a good call, because he's such a good player, and I think he just brings a lot more pack off the bench, or packs a lot more punch off the bench. And Diarmuid Mangan is selected on the back of two very good performances, but a huge shout. Now, they were light on numbers because Ryan Baird and Urgie Snyman are not there, but his energy the last couple of weeks has been huge.
Yeah, I think it makes sense, because I think they needed to have lock cover. They went with Alex Soroka in the semi-final win over Toulon, and look, Soroka has played in the second row, but he is pretty much a back row, so I think it made sense. Mangan is a huge man as well. I remember he got called into Ireland camp not that long ago as well. Didn't quite make his Ireland debut, but he's a big body. I think they're going to need that. You're right to touch on I suppose the Leinster bench isn't as strong as it could have been. I wonder if they would have went 6-2 if Ryan Baird or Urgie Snyman had been fit. I think they were kind of backed into going with a 5-3, because they were probably just missing one too many forwards. But like, Diarmuid Mangan has never played in any sort of occasion like this. But again, it's back in a young player, and this is, I think, what Leinster fans want to see. And I think it makes sense to have that lock cover, like I said, because look, touch wood, if James Ryan or Joe McCarthy were to go down, I don't think you want to be shoehorning a back row into the second row for such an important game. So it's a huge occasion, but I think both him and Paddy McCarthy, like, what a boost it is to have Paddy McCarthy back. But Andrew Porter is used to playing deep into games, and I would imagine he's going to play minimum 60 minutes, all going well. He's going to be asked to go long way into the game. But this is a big surprise, isn't it, to see Paddy McCarthy back? Like, we didn't expect to see him for a while. He had a pretty bad injury.
Yeah, well, I thought the season was over. That was kind of the word on the ground. But it's he's obviously worked incredibly hard with the medics, but with Leinster and the RFU to get back into this position. And what an occasion! Like, that's two members of the 2023 under-20s team in the team. The one we all expected to be kind of there when Leinster were playing in Champions Cup finals. Sam Prendergast, he misses out. It's Frawley just to round out the bench. It's Max Deegan's the other covering forward Luke McGrath, who started the 2019 final. Did he start here in 2018 as well when they last won? I think he's one of 9 survivors in the kind of Leinster camp at the moment, and that I guess is a factor. The fact they're back somewhere where a load of them had probably the greatest day in blue, and I think that can't be dismissed. I'd say Leo Cullen is tapping into that to some degree, because there's a lot being made, and rightly so, and I've written a big piece about it today, of all the heartbreak that Leinster have endured in this tournament. But a lot of them have won it, and they won it here in very different conditions. But do you think that's a factor?
Yeah, I was going to say that it couldn't be any different, could it, in 2018, in terms of the absolute slog, that there was no tries in the game against Racing. That game is going to be very different as well. I expect there to be plenty of points. I mean, you're going to have to outscore Bordeaux, but of course you are. But Bordeaux will back themselves to outscore anyone. And yeah, look, of course it's going to be a factor. They have won here. It's crazy to think that it's been 8 years, and you look at the quality that Leinster have had at their disposal throughout that time. But I think something that hasn't really been spoken about enough this week is what the majority of these Leinster players have done since they lost the Champions Cup. Let's only go back to last season, the Champions Cup semi-final to Northampton. They went on and won the URC, and I don't think they get enough credit for winning the URC. The URC is a very different competition to what it was, beating the Bulls comfortably enough as it was in Dublin last year. Then they went on to Lions Tour, the majority of them, and won a Lions series. I know it wasn't the strongest Australia team. They still got the job done. And then similarly, during the Six Nations, they had a really poor start, obviously, against France in the opening night, but they really grew into it, and they finished the Six Nations by winning the Triple Crown against Scotland, which was a de facto final as well. So they have built up, I think, enough experience since the crushing defeat as it was to Northampton, and I think that will be a big factor as well.
Yeah, and their form has gotten better and better since that Six Nations. They've become a better team as it's gone on, because they were struggling earlier on in the season, and you've seen it. Bordeaux, though, are a very different proposition to anyone they've played this season. Their defeats in the URC have, none of the teams are anywhere near what Bordeaux bring. And then in the Champions Cup, they've kind of managed to avoid any of the big hitters the way the draw worked out. No, not their fault. Yeah. Leicester are probably the best team they've played, and that was a tight game. And Bordeaux will just offer different threats to what they've come across all season.
Yeah, I was writing about this early in the week. It's almost does a disservice to the other parts of both teams' games to boil it down to Bordeaux's attack against Leinster's defence, but how fascinating is that tactical battle? Noel McNamara, I know you've got a piece with him tomorrow. Clare native, used to run the Leinster Academy, an outstanding coach who's building a serious reputation for himself, going up against Jacques Nienarber's defence. I'm fascinated to see how that goes, but I think it would be naive to think that Bordeaux were this kind of loose team that they just play from anywhere, and while they do that, they have a real hard edge to their pack this season. I think their pack is better than it was even last season as well. You look at their stats from the set piece, the scrum and line out, it's nearly at 100%. They are a very, very hard-nosed pack now, and that obviously allows Luku Jalibert to pull the strings. So that's where Leinster are going to try and win this game. Is up front, and they need to stop Bordeaux at source around the breakdown. I think Carl Dixon's interpretation of what he allows Leinster get away with, they will look to push the legalities around the breakdown, as all good teams do, and I think the scrum as well. We saw Leinster go really well against a French team in the semi-final when Luke Pearce, another English referee, was reffing, because Irish teams haven't generally favoured well with, but that was another, I think, big boost, and I think his interpretation would be really important too.
Yeah, well, I think the McNamara factor is key, and also Joey Carberry. There's a lot of knowledge in the Bordeaux setup about the Leinster players. Noel McNamara was telling me he coached Caelan Doris on about 7 or 8 different teams growing up. He's had hands on, I'd say, majority of the players out in this 23 today. If he watches every Leinster game, he's on top of the detail. They actually met in pre-season before the start of last season. Bordeaux had their strongest team out. Leinster were kind of mix and match, and Bordeaux ran away with it. So they've had a little bit of taste of what the Jacques Nienarber defence has to offer, albeit in a pre-season game. So that's another little additional factor. What do you think is going to happen? It's a game that's so fascinating because it's such a clash of styles. Some of the best players in the world going out there against each other, and a lot of it's who turns up and who performs on the day. My sense is that Bordeaux are just a better team and have the edge. And have just more danger, and they'll break them. Where do you think it's going to be one of those?
I go back to what the weather is going to be like in that early kick-off tomorrow. You think of the amount of energy that it requires Leinster to play in that Blitz D, and when it works, it's awesome. And we've seen them shut down so many teams over the last couple of years since Jacques Nienarber has come in. But they're not going to have played in conditions like this. So are they going to be able to keep that up for 80 minutes? And is their attack going to be able to flow off the back of it? Because I think their attack has gotten much better over the last few weeks as well. I think a lot of that, we haven't even really touched on Harry Byrne. what a huge day it is for him. But I think the fact that now they've settled on a starting 10 has really enhanced, I think, the Leinster attack. We've seen more, I think, of Tyler Blainell's imprint on it. But the big question is, are they going to be able to have the energy to sustain that? Because Bordeaux are going to gobble that up. Like we said earlier, they are used to playing in these conditions, and I think that will be a big factor. But I give Leinster a great chance. It's unusual for Leinster to be coming into a game as underdogs. I think it's gone to 5 points now, the last I saw, which probably sounds about right. But I think they'll relish the fact that they're underdogs. But I don't think that lessens the pressure that's on them.
What about tonight? 9 o'clock tonight, Irish, or 8 o'clock Irish time, Ulster against Montpellier in the Challenge Cup final. And while it's obviously the lesser of the two tournaments, it's a huge night for Richie Murphy's side.
Yeah, we bumped into a couple of the Ulster players last night out having their ice cream cones. They looked pretty relaxed. Ian Henderson was there. So unfortunate, obviously, that he misses out through suspension. And when you look at it, I just think, like, with Henderson, Rob Herring, Jacob Stockdale and Stuart McCloskey in particular, they're 4 big players to be without for such a key game. We were obviously waiting to see the Montpellier team, which is well out by now, because we were kind of wondering if they might rest a couple of players because they have a huge game. I think it's against Poe, is it?
Yeah.
Next week in the top 14. But they've rolled out the big guns. They've won the Challenge Cup before. 20 years since Ulster have last won a trophy. So I just think they're missing one too many big players. I don't know about you, and look, I think they'll fire shots and I think they'll score tries, but I think this Montpellier team will probably put the squeeze on them up front, and they're lacking a bit of punch in the bench maybe.
Yeah, like I think that's fair. I tipped Ulster in the sport during the week, and I've kind of, the closer it's got, the less confident I am in that prediction. But I do think that as long as they don't get sucked into Montpellier's game, and as long as when they do get hit, they counter-punch and they keep coming back in Montpellier, they've got a chance, because they have the game breakers. They've got they've got some really, really good. They've got the game breakers within a really good attack, and I think that gives them a really good fighter's chance. It's also everything for them, as you mentioned. Montpellier have another day to come. They could win the top 14 this year. That's what they're targeting. Whereas this is like, lads, like Angus Bell's last ever game for Ulster, he'll go 80, I'd say. Like, I wouldn't be surprised to see lads going really deep in this game, emptying the tank, and let's see how it goes. But I think they have a chance, and that's all you can ask for. The thing is that there's so much riding on it from them because they didn't get the job done in the URC last week. So we'll wait and see. We'll be back with a post-match podcast after the Champions Cup final, reviewing both games tomorrow, and we're looking forward to it.